The Cleveland Browns got in a real practice Thursday as they get ready and prep for the Houston Texans. We get all the news from that and some thoughts on the Browns-Texans game Sunday, starting now on your latest Locked On Browns.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound, LGB, and the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, and I appreciate each and every one of you that make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. And if you are not part of the everyday crowd, we'll get a new plan, stand, and make sure you subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Browns, Texans, Week 16. Obviously, this is a big one here for the Cleveland Browns. We got the latest, the injury report, as we do with every Thursday episode, as we manipulate another week here, as we get you guys ready for Cleveland Browns action on Sunday, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, the next day. Hopefully, the Cleveland Browns play the role of Santa Claus for us all for Christmas Day. For the Cleveland Browns, Joel Bitonio, second straight day, did not practice. Joel did speak to the media. Said he's progressing in the right direction. I don't know if that necessarily means Sunday. We know Joel, obviously, dealing with somewhat of some sort of a knee issue here, did have surgery earlier in the year. Now dealing with a back that forced him to leave the game after only 11 snaps on Sunday. Michael Dunn is an able replacement. He's certainly not Joel Bitonio. Nobody is, of course. I believe in my heart of hearts, the Browns would like to be able to sit Joel Bitonio in this game. But the thought process is, can you win the game without him? Because then maybe you could sit him week 18, haven't really revved up to go to the playoff game if things work out for the Browns in that nature. Jerron Christian, limited 2 straight days. I'm not really too concerned about that. Joe Flacco, full practice today. Jerome Ford, full practice today. Myles Garrett back on the practice field today. Full practice for Myles. Jordan Kunaszyk still out with the calf. Looks like it's going to end up being a lost season for Jordan Kunaszyk, a guy who became loved by defense coordinator Jim Schwartz during OTAs, but sadly for Jordan, this year is really getting away from him and really getting away from him quickly. David Njoku, apparently we found out, toe was banged up, another injury at home. Oh my God. David, if you need a butler, I will come take care of everything you need to make sure we can get you in the shape we need you to go down the stretch. Ogbenaya Okoronkwo, a second straight DNP. My guess is the Browns are just hoping that maybe they can get word somehow, some way that maybe Ogbo could be a part of the playoff run. Ethan Posick, second straight day limited. Tomorrow, Friday, will obviously be key, whether or not he's going to be able to go here this week. Zadarius Smith, light workout for him. No concerns. Obviously, the veteran. Wyatt Teller, another guy limited today, but, obviously rest, ankle. Wyatt's been through enough. Juan Thornhill, not back on the practice field yet, so you certainly have your doubts about his availability on Sunday. Anthony Walker certainly didn't trend in the right direction. Did some working out yesterday, didn't practice today. Don't know if this is load management or just, looking out for your veteran linebacker here. For the Houston Texans, and it's not getting better for Houston. It's not. Obviously, one of their 2 first-round picks, Will Anderson, their impressive young defensive end, did not practice along with quarterback C.J. Stroud. It looks like it's been pretty much denounced that Case Keenum will be the quarterback for the Texans on Sunday. Browns obviously dodge a bullet. Great young player, great young talent. But C.J. Stroud, the Browns' first meeting with C.J. Stroud will obviously be somewhere down the road. Noah Brown, limited 2 straight days. He was the Texans' top receiver last week. Tomorrow, obviously, huge there. Nico Collins, limited 2 straight days as well. George Fant, the tackle, 2 straight days full of practice. Brevin Jordan, limited, along with Shaq Mason, limited. John Mechie, limited with an illness. So obviously there's a little bit of something going on with the Houston Texans. We know Stroud is out. Laramie Tunsil back to a full practice today. The big left tackle, that should be a really nice matchup between himself and Myles Garrett. If Myles Garrett spends, the question will be how many reps Myles Garrett spends across from Laramie Tunsil, or do the Browns move him around? Jimmy Ward got in a limited practice today. He was a DNP yesterday with a concussion. Obviously, former San Francisco 49ers safety came over with D'Amico Ryans here. So certainly something to monitor there. Big-time playmaker for the Houston Texans in the secondary. So certainly something to keep your eyes on as far as Sunday. The Texans probably can use everybody they can get right now as they're in this odd position, the Houston Texans. And we touched on it a little bit yesterday with John Hickman. Houston's in a really tough position here right now because you obviously would love to make the playoffs here. Year one, you will obviously get to the playoffs, add more allure to this team, get this team, prepped. Even if you can get to the playoffs, even if you don't win in the playoffs, you get these guys a taste, and it just gives them a little bit more to work for in the offseason as they start to, look towards 24. But you don't have C.J. Stroud. You have Case Keenum. Obviously, you're missing what was your big-time play receiver this year in Tank Dell. So it's a tough spot here for the Houston Texans. Do you try to find a way to get yourself one, if not two more wins this season? Hopefully not Sunday against the Browns, of course. Or do you just understand that it was a really, really good year? Maybe you peaked a little earlier than most expected. And, are your sights on 24, or, is getting this possibility of a wild card berth really, really important to the Houston Texans? Putting Case Keenum in there, having Case Keenum have to do it certainly makes for an interesting, scenario for them. Devin Singletary has been their lead back here the last couple of weeks and has done a pretty good job. Their game last week against the Tennessee Titans, a lot of smoke and mirrors. You beat the Tennessee Titans 19-16. Tennessee Titans aren't a good football team. They're just not. Tennessee Titans are a bad football team. And there could be a lot of changes coming, for the Tennessee Titans in the offseason. So certainly something to monitor. Yes, the Texans didn't win that game. Yes, they did win it with Case Keenum. But, Tennessee Titans, they're one of very few teams in the NFL with 3 games to go that are dead and buried on the side of the road and have no real shot here for the 2023 season, the Titans. So, but I mean, for the Texans, what are you actually playing for here? They just try to put out and have a good game, maybe get some guys who haven't played a lot, an opportunity. You're also missing linebacker Blake Cashman, who's been your most productive linebacker in terms of statistical output this year. So there is a lot going on for the Houston Texans. Maybe Friday brings more clarity towards that. Hopefully Friday brings a little more clarity for the Cleveland Browns as far as, who's going to be in, who's going to be out for them. We will do another show tomorrow, as this time of the year. There's no way I can sit down and give you a pregame show on Thursday. There's just so many guys banged up. There's so many guys trying to manipulate the week. And of course, we don't know what the Browns game plan is here this week as far as load management, keeping in mind that the Browns are playing on Sunday, Christmas Eve, and then are going to toe it up again, obviously the following Thursday at home against the New York Jets. We're going to talk a little bit about the Texans a little bit more in depth here, and then why this week and maybe getting a win this week is so pivotal. So do not go anywhere. Your latest Locked On Browns continues, and I appreciate every single one of you for being along for the ride. All of your favorite restaurants and stores, from retail to grocery, are on the app, so you can shop everything you need to get game day ready with DoorDash. Get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. Then when you download the DoorDash app and you enter the code LOCK23, subject to change, terms apply. Obviously, it's a weird one this week. Christmas Eve. Are you home? Are you at company's house? Are you at family's house? Look, you want your wings, it's game day. You want your pizza, it's game day. That's why we got DoorDash, and you can bring in some snacks, some goodies for you, the family, friends, however you're choosing to spend your Christmas Eve. Again, get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. When you download the DoorDash app and you enter the code LOCKED23, subject to change, terms apply. Don't forget to use LOCK23 for 50% off up to $10 value on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and spend $15 or more. Subject to change, terms apply. And as you can tell, I got dinner on the way, thanks to the good folks over at DoorDash. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. And of course, we appreciate every single one of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen. You don't need anything special. You don't need a VIP ticket. You don't need a code. You want in on the everyday crowd. That is Locked On Browns. Subscribe to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Of course, the show is always available, always free, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, with the amount of injuries and significant injuries that the Houston Texans have, and now I had talked about this, and the everyday crowd knows this is why you need to be part of it. This was what it was similar for opponents of the Cleveland Browns with Joe Flacco in his first start, maybe against the Rams. Of course, his second start against the Jaguars. With Case Keenum, the Browns have one game of film to go off of. And yes, he was a former Cleveland Brown. Yes, he played for this franchise. So you know what you think his strengths are. You know what you think, the positives are for Case Keenum. 23 of 36 last week, over 200 yards, had a pretty good game, did have a crucial pick six that the Texans were able to overcome and pull out that victory over the Tennessee Titans last week. But there's just not a lot to go on. Tank Dell is no longer a part of this team due to injury. Nico Collins, we'll see if that works out. Those are the starting wideouts. If, Collins can't go, then both of those guys are gone. Puts it in a really, really difficult spot. Dalton Schultz is a nice tight end. With one of the Browns defense, and one of the things that's been an issue this year at times, has certainly been quarterbacks with mobility. Guys, we all know Case Keenum. We know mobility is certainly not anything we're going to be worried about with Case Keenum. If anything, it would be a straight busted play or deep coverage where Case Keenum was able to get some positive yardage. So for the Browns, that's something they do not necessarily have to concern themselves with. Defensively, if Anderson is out, if Jimmy Ward is out, if Blake Cashman is out, again, this is going to be a defense that has some guys on the field that have not seen a ton of reps. So you're going into this blind. So your game plan is to just, hey, we're going to do what we do best, and maybe we're going to have to adjust on the fly. Defensively, maybe Jim Schwartz is going to have to make some adjustments on the fly. Offensively, maybe Kevin Stefanski is going to have to make some adjustments on the fly. Just things you have to think about when you get this late in the season and teams are missing some of their more significant players. It doesn't mean that teams aren't still tough. It doesn't mean that teams still don't bring everything that they have. But you basically have to reinvent yourself week after week. And no team in the NFL has been better this year in 2023 in reinventing themselves on the fly, of course, than your Cleveland Browns. Now, you look at the Texans and Nico Collins, if he's able to go. Robert Woods, obviously, is a player everybody's familiar with, been in the league forever. Noah Brown, as I mentioned earlier, their leading receiver last week. Dalton Schultz, their tight end, came over from the Cowboys. You look at the offensive line, Laramie Tunsil, good player. Juice Scruggs, second round pick in 2023. Their center, Michael Dieter, good player, okay player. Shaq Mason, good player, extended. He's going to stay in Houston for the long term. And of course, George Fant, not a bad player as well. Devin Singletary is your number one running back right now. The Houston Texans do play a fullback. You get to the defensive side of the ball, we pretty much have the idea that Will Anderson is going to be out. Jerry Hughes, everybody familiar, longtime player, Buffalo Bills, been with the Houston Texans. Jack Duffin, I know Jack, always wanted him in Cleveland. Sadly, it didn't work out these last couple of years. Sheldon Rankins, always been a solid player. Malik Collins, solid player. Jonathan Grenard, solid player. 2.5 sacks last week against the Tennessee Titans. 7 sacks for the Houston Texans last week against the Tennessee Titans. Does it concern me? Yes. Does it scare me? No. Tennessee Titans offensive line, again, garbage. Hot garbage. So anything that this team was able to do against Tennessee Titans is not something I'm going to lose sleep over. Christian Harris, you listened to John Hickman talk yesterday at length about Christian Harris, a player really, really coming into his own for the Houston Texans and just starting to establish himself. And this guy could be a key pivotal player come Sunday. Stingley, obviously everybody knows the LSU roots. Great player. Jalen Petrie had a day last year. If you remember, bunch of tackles against the Browns last year in Deshaun Watson's debut, an interception in that game as well. Jimmy Ward, we'll see how it works out for Jimmy Ward. Could get, maybe Adrian Amos becomes a player. Steven Nelson, a guy I've always loved. I actually interviewed Steven Nelson years ago during his draft cycle. Solid player. He's been all over the NFL. And, some of the names, obviously, you're going to look out for when you're thinking about the Houston Texans. But as you get deeper into this for the Browns, and this is where it's difficult, but this point of year, and again, we talked about this yesterday, and I've talked about this a little bit going through here. This was the part of the year where the Browns were supposed to make their hay. We always thought the Browns were going to be strong closers. So, yes, it's the road, and it's not necessarily been the Browns' best friend. Offense hasn't always clicked at times. The defense has been gassed or beaten up by the run, not been able to find that same juju, momentum, whatever key buzzword you like to use to describe it. They haven't been able to find a way to get that to go on the road with them. And now, getting closer and closer to the finish line of the regular season, understanding that they do hold that first wild card spot. They do hold it by a 1-game advantage. Is this maybe now where it starts to click a little bit more? And is this maybe where having Joe Flacco in here makes it work a little more? None of this is unfamiliar to a guy like Joe Flacco. This team, feels good about themselves, and you keep hearing it. You hear from David Njoku. This is the most in-tune team I've ever been a part of. And it's not a knock on former teammates. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But David don't speak that way. Most of these guys on the Browns don't speak ill of the guys who are no longer here. But you have this in front of you. And as much as it was the PJ Walkers and the DTRs, and then the final word that it was not going to be Deshaun anymore in 2023, you bring in Joe, and he's a name brand. He's a presence. And all of a sudden, where guys were like, man, we got to fight like hell week in, week out. Now it's more of I think we're going to be all right, And for Joe Flacco over the last few weeks, it's not a knock on Deshaun Watson, but this has been some really, really good quarterback play. You can get some deeper into the metrics, and you can find some things that show, that Joe, it may be some smoke and mirrors, but, almost 1,000 yards through 3 games is no BS. 6 TDs through 3 games. Again, it's no BS. A little bit better control of the ball. Obviously, the turnovers, we all got to see, which we all, if you didn't know, I don't know why, the first interception, obviously last week, Cedric Tillman took the route long. He was supposed to cut it short. Look, and, I understand and I get it, that Cedric Tillman didn't make but look, for a rookie wide receiver to be out there doing what he's doing right now is pretty solid this late in the year, but it's a really tough spot to be in for a rookie wide receiver like Cedric Tillman, where almost week in, week out for the first 13, 14 weeks, it's been a different starting quarterback. So, now on his 4th quarterback, Joe Flacco, success last week, even with the 2 interceptions that essentially were part of balls thrown to Cedric Tillman. I like where the kid's going. I think the kid's going to be, solid. And I think the Browns have a nice future player in Cedric Tillman, and a guy who's contributing for them right now. But the biggest takeaway, obviously, from this is it's really tough to game plan for this game because you don't know exactly what's coming from the Houston Texans. So what do? You focus on what you do, and you do it better than whatever they are going to bring. We're going to get to segment 3 here, start closing it out. Again, there will be a pregame show tomorrow. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns, and don't you dare step away. PrizePicks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. We're the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on a 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you can watch the winnings roll in. You want to play alongside some of PrizePicks' favorite players, like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz. You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each and every week. PrizePicks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. PrizePicks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. I will get you your PrizePicks Browns lineup tomorrow, so make sure you stick around for the pregame show. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Closing it out here, Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns, and handle your business. Look, the Browns have been through a bunch this year. And look, nobody's holding a vigil. The fact that they're on quarterback number 4. And I think there's a lot of NFL teams looking at the Browns and their success sitting at 9-5 right now, probably with some spite, because this is not a course that a team that has been through everything the Browns have been through this year should be in. This is not the spot they should be in. They should not be sitting in the number 1 spot in the wild card. They should not. And it's not the craziest thing in the world, for the Browns to find a way to backdoor into a number 1 seed. It's not. Baltimore's got a couple tough games left. Miami's got a couple tough games left. Chiefs, AFC South. Seriously, AFC South. Jacksonville might win the AFC South and might not deserve it the way they're going to close out this stretch. And Trevor Lawrence still not at practice for the Jacksonville Jaguars with a concussion. But handle your business. Win this game in Houston. Win on Thursday night. That solidifies and ends it. Look, the Browns can clinch a playoff spot this week, but you want that top wild card spot. You are gunning to go play that AFC South team, and you don't care if it's on the road. You don't. You're scared to go to Jacksonville. You're scared to go back to Houston. You're scared to go to Indianapolis. If the Browns, and I believe Coach Stefanski is 10-0 against the AFC South. So at worst, you are gunning for that top wild card spot. You want that AFC South team, whoever it may be. But you don't want to back in. You don't want to kill the momentum that you have built to this point. If you were the Cleveland Browns, you've got everything clicking other than the running game. And we'll figure it out, hopefully, or just ignore it and throw the living daylights out of the pill. But you control your own destiny. And that is what any team in any sport with a playoff system is looking for. You want it to be on you. So go get this win Sunday in Houston. Yes, Case Keenum, and some of this has been weird because, Case Keenum, it's not a lot really of familiar faces. It's not. Case Keenum doesn't know DeAnthony Bell. Case Keenum does not know Ronnie Hickman. Case Keenum does not know Martin Emerson. Case Keenum has never been teammates with Zadarius Smith. Case Keenum has not been teammates with Dalvin Tomlinson. So, a lot of people are trying to bring that up, and it's not a Jim Schwartz system. So that, it's very, that's why I say the Browns are going in this blind. Yeah, you know who Case Keenum is, but that's it. It just seems so weird that everybody just thinks that this is 2 years in the NFL is a long, long time as far as roster management and roster rollover. Houston, obviously, piss poor team last year. They're not a piss poor team this year. Granted, they're going to be without some of their top stars for this game, but they're still a capable team. DeMeco Ryans is a very, very good coach. And DeMeco Ryans going to be down in Houston minimum a decade. And DeMeco Ryans going to win some division titles. He's going to win some playoff games. But the Browns, you need to handle this yourself. And then you got the Jets coming in on Thursday night. And the Jets defense is good. Their offense, and look, we don't even know if their offense would have been good with Aaron Rodgers. And who knows? Maybe Cincinnati game doesn't matter. The goal here is to make sure the Cincinnati game does not matter. If you're the Browns, that is the ultimate goal. You do not want the Cincinnati game to matter. This is why you handle your business. And you know what? You can get to week 18 and you can tell Joe Bitonio, go sit down. You've earned it. You can tell Dalvin Tomlinson, big fella, sit down. Anthony Walker, sit down. Denzel Ward, sit down. This is what you're striving for because you want to get yourself prepped, rested, and go in to that wild card game. And again, you are gunning for that AFC South team. That is the path you want to go to if you're the Cleveland Browns. And the best way to do that is to go beat the Houston Texans on Sunday and then beat the New York Jets the Thursday night following. You get a nice long rest before week 18. You can sit some of your key players, and then the Browns will be ready to go in the playoffs. Who knows? Cincinnati might matter. Who knows? If some of these games can break the way the Browns need them to, who knows? Maybe week 18 becomes pretty pivotal for the Browns, but none of that is going to come to fruition if you don't win this game against the Houston Texans on Sunday. We'll have your pregame show tomorrow. We'll get a little bit further in depth, obviously, and get a better idea who's in, who's out for Houston for the Browns. I am Jeff Lloyd. I am your host here at Locked On Browns. Now my 7th season. I appreciate all of you who make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. And the everydayers, I love you guys to death, and help me recruit the everydayers and more everydayers here by making sure everybody subscribes to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. You're going to be around family this week, right? Pick up their phones. Do them a favor. Subscribe them to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Show's always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.